In 1996, Bill Clinton passed the Telecom Act of 1996, which was executed in 1998. And due to that, there was a bunch of competitive local exchange carriers that popped up to compete against the regional bell operating companies. And I was able to get into one on the ground floor called USN Communications. Now, when I started there, I just want you to understand, I don't really understand how I got the job, because wireless and telecom is two different languages. One is like Chinese and one is like English. But because the person that was interviewing me was this nice Jewish lady with bright red hair, she liked me because I reminded her of the good parts of her ex-husband, was the reason that I got the job. Well, she told me that. And so when I went to training in Chicago, it was a one-week training, I was there and I felt like I was out of place because they were talking about all the ones and the zeros and all the super highway, and I didn't know nothing about what they were talking about. I said, Dr. Janet, I believe you hired the wrong person for this job. But she said, Sean, don't worry about it. This is a startup company. You got plenty enough time to catch up on everything. And sure enough, I did. I became very successful at that company. As a matter of fact, I got promoted several times. I went from account manager, then to sales, then to sales manager, then to state manager, and then to sales director. And it was a great journey. And then I took my talents over to AT&T. I became the vice president of marketing and sales for AT&T for 4 years. Now, in the midst of being in all of these sales positions, I was always training folks. And people say to me all the time, Sean, you're really gifted at training people. And so AT&T offered me the vice president of training. And I did that for about 5 years. I left there and I went over to T-Mobile and I was the vice president of training for them for 5 years. And my last stop, I was the vice president of training for the largest textile restoration company in the world, which is CRDN. Now, after doing this, I decided that I would start my own company. I was always on big stages inside of corporations. And I thought that I could start training corporations from the outside. I started my own consulting firm called the Fair Consulting Group, where I trained mid-level managers and executive leaderships here in the United States, Canada, and Europe. Now, you guys know that social media was really popular back in those days. And I started just telling folks everywhere I was going and who I was training. I'm in New York on this day. I'm in California on this day. I'm in Oklahoma on this day. I'm training this company, this company, this company. You guys know that when you post on social media, that a lot of folks really don't say nothing. They don't really like your post. They don't really comment on your post. But you know what they're doing though? They watching you. They watching you. I learned that from a very early time on social media. And so about 2 years of doing that, I get a phone call from a gentleman named Paul Glantz. I was in Dallas, and he called me up, and I answered the phone. Normally, I don't answer the phone if I don't have your name in it. I always wait for you to leave a voicemail, and let me just see if you say something interesting, and then maybe I'll call you back. But something told me to answer the phone. And when I answer, he says, hello, is this Sean? I say, yes. He says, this is Paul Glantz. You probably don't know who I am, but I am the founder and CEO of Imagine Theaters. Now, I know Imagine Theaters because I go to his movies all the time. He owns the largest luxury theater chain in the country. He says, I was just wondering if we can have a conversation with you. I said, well, that's fine. I got a few minutes. No, he says, I would like to meet you in person. Now, at the time, I was in Dallas. He's in Troy, Michigan. I says, I won't be back till next week. He said, that's fine. You can come in Monday through Thursday, anytime from 8 a.m. to 2 o'clock p.m. It's not a problem. I'll be there. Just come in any day that you want. You don't need an appointment. My assistant and secretary knows who you are. I said, oh, really? So on Tuesday, I walk through the door. I come in the office. Hey, Mr. Fair, how you doing? I said, how you doing? I'm doing just fine. She says, Paul is expecting you. And she took me to the back, and he's on the phone having a conversation. He says, Sean, can you hold on just 1 second? I said, sure. And as soon as he gets off the phone, this is what he says to me. I just want you to know that we are in the Sean Fair business. I said, oh, really? What do you mean by that? He says, we have a problem and we think that you can help us solve it. He says, we have a lull in our theaters from 9 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. And we were just wondering if you could take your corporate clients from the corporate classroom, from the hotel conference room, and bring them to the big screen at Imagine Theater. I said, really? What would I get for doing something like that? He says, my house is your house. You can choose any one of our 26 theaters at any time, and you don't have to pay a dime to be in. I said, oh, really? What else might I get for doing something like that? He says, we will give you a marquee 90 days before every one of your shows at Imagine Theaters. I said, oh, really? What else are you offering with this? He says, any sponsorships that you get will be your sponsorships. I said, well, what do you want? He says, what would you charge to do a leadership training for 90 minutes in one of my theaters per person? I says, I'll charge $100 per head. He says, give me half of it. He says, what day would you like to get started? And so I thought about it. I called him up. I says, I'll do it on this date. I had a nice marquee, right next to the Black Panther and all that stuff. It was real cool in all of the theaters. And matter of fact, they promoted what I was doing. I gave him the date in my first training at the theater. I sold it out. And after I sold it out, he called me up the next day and said, Sean, can you come in the office? I'd like to talk to you about something. So he said, Sean, do you know what you did? I said, what did I do? He says, you sold out 7 theaters in one city. See, back in those days, the matinee was $7. This was during matinee time. So I'm giving him $50. So that's 7 theaters in one shot. He says, when are you going to have the next one? I said, well, give me a few days. I'll call you back on that. And I gave him a new date, and I brought in 2 other speakers. And guess what happened? We sold it out. As a matter of fact, everyone started getting all these different contracts from the people in the audience. It was a really cool thing. And he was really excited about it. He says, when are you going to have the next one? I said, give me about 90 days. I've brought in 12 speakers for that one. And guess what happened? We sold it out. And then all of a sudden, I came up with the idea that, man, I've built a stage here. People are generating revenue. They're getting contracts. They're getting exposure. And thus, the Leadership Experience Tour was born. I started charging speakers to get on stage to sell their product. Now, over time, the platform has developed and has morphed into something different than just getting on the stage. We now provide content for speakers where they spend 3 days in front of TV cameras, in front of interviewers, asking them about their platforms. And so now, we're not just a Leadership Experience Tour in Troy, Michigan, but now we have 45 stages all over the country. We have stages now in Hong Kong and Thailand. We've done stages in Vegas, co-partnered with the Flux Awards. And now we just launched LED Global. Will be Dubai in March. We're headed over to Singapore, and we're going to hit every corner of the world, creating these massive stages for high net worth individuals so that they can deliver their message and sell their products on stages in front of high net worth people. Now, the reason that I tell you this story is not to tell you about what it is that I do. I tell you this story to say, answer your phone. Every person, yeah, you don't answer your phone. Every phone call that you get is a possible doorway.
Yes, sir.
Every person that you meet is a possible doorway. Every email message that you get is a possible doorway. Every LinkedIn message. How many guys get a bunch of LinkedIn messages and you don't respond to them? I respond to every one of them. And every time I get about 25 of those messages a day. And I always respond back to those messages. But see, most people, y'all don't want to be sold to. But because I have a platform, I get on the phone with them, I get on Zoom with them, and guess what I do? I sell them. So what happens is, well, Sean, can you come at this conference when it costs you $3,000 or $4,000? Well, I do what you do already. But I have a network. But what I can do is I can help you. So if you would like to partner with me, I would be more than happy to have a further conversation with you. And so I create these relationships because I have built a platform and a network. I am here to say to you, how many guys are speakers? If you are a speaker and you don't have a network, you'll probably never get to exactly where you want to go. How many guys like to do this at a high level? Okay, what does John Maxwell have? He's got a network. What does Tony Robbins have? A network. What does Lisa Nichol have? A network. Every major speaker has a network. And the one thing that they won't share with you is very simple. There's something else that they all have in common, and most of you guys are probably sat there and they never tell you that you need to do it. You know what that is? Right. You got to have your own signature event. You go to theirs, and guess what they tell you? Everything that they got. The speaker fees, most people are not going to get a lot of speaker fees. That's not how the business works. Les Brown, 90% of his revenue is platforms, not speaker fees. John Maxwell, 90% of his revenue is not speaker fees, it's platform. Tony Robbins, most of his revenue is platforms through his signature event. It's not speaker fees, right? So they're selling on the fact they can help you get onto stages so that you can get what? Speaker fees, but yet less than 90% of their revenue is not, right? So what we do is we help train speakers on how this really works. So I'm one of those coaches, by the way. I don't just tell you what to do. All you gotta do is follow. I still do the very thing that I train people to do. I'm on stages every single weekend, right? I'm training corporations almost every single week. So the very thing that I'm teaching you, you can just watch it. You can just follow me. You can just follow my pages. It'll show you exactly what it is that I do, right? So if you're trying to expand in this particular area, right, being a part of what it is that we do, this ecosystem, right, being a part of a network that is a reciprocal revenue generating ecosystem is important. How many guys are building it by yourself? If you build it by yourself, it's tough, right? It is a recipe for disaster. So when you have a signature event through the Leadership Experience Tour and you need an MC, how much is it going to cost you?
A lot.
We ain't paying to be here, right? But the ecosystem provides you with everything that you need. You cannot build a business by yourself. I don't care what kind of business it is. You have to have people that believe in your vision, that is willing to be a part of what it is that you do. You guys know when I first started, I had Emma Burkesell, I had Larry Miller, I had Marcus Wright, who helped me to build this business. Do you know how much money I paid them for the first 2 years? Zero. They got zero. They believed in the vision, but because of my integrity, they knew that once the money started coming, they'll get the money. My photographer, Emma Burkesell, averages about $32,000 for every Leadership Experience Tour show that we do. $32,000 over a 2-day period of time. For the first 2 years, I paid her zero. She's elated, right? She's elated. Everybody that's with me have benefited from the program, and every speaker and coach that's there. That they have the tools and all the resources are right there in the ecosystem. It's right there. Building by yourself is very, very difficult. So with that being said, I just want to encourage everybody that number one, answer your phone. Answer your phone. Number two, you cannot build a speaking business or even a coaching business at a very high level without being in an ecosystem. You guys know where Les Brown came from? What ecosystem did he come from?
Radio.
No one knows it. He's a product of John Maxwell. He's a product of John Maxwell. Every one of these guys came from an ecosystem, right? So if you're trying to build in this area, make sure you attach to them, whether it's mine or whomever it might be, if this is the business that you want to be in. So that being said, everybody, I'm going to turn it back over to our wonderful MC. Or was that, did I stand the time?
No, but it's okay.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody.
I got my heels on now, y'all, so I can be a little straight. Give Dr. Sean Fair another round of applause. It's gonna be awesome. He said you can't build this by yourself. Did that touch anybody? Yeah, because we like to do it all. We like to be the person that build the website, send the emails, all the marketing, set up, decorate, blow up the balloons, do the sign in, print the QR code, respond to emails, pitch yourself, still work your 9 to 5. Can I get that, man? All right, I just want to make sure it wasn't just me. Okay. All right, it ain't just me. All right. Are y'all ready to keep this party started? Well, keep it going. Sean kind of set it off real nice. You can't do it by yourself. Our next speaker we have, her name is Sherry Sears. She is a retired U.S. Army veteran, an award-winning author and inspirational speaker, committed to helping others live with courage, wisdom, and hope. She holds a bachelor's degree in business administration, a master's of education in curriculum and instruction. She combines all of her military leadership and educational expertise along with her strong faith, say faith, in God to inspire audiences nationwide. Recognized with honors including the Phenomenal Woman Award. Can I hear phenomenal? Phenomenal. Yes, ma'am. And the Black Diamond Author Award. She's been featured in numerous publications, and her authentic storytelling and practical life lessons helps her encourage others to overcome challenges, embrace growth, and confidently pursue their purpose with resiliency and faith. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the amazing Miss Sears.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So y'all put me behind Sean. Thank you. Whoever did that. I come to you today with the 3 B's. My mother passed them down to me. All right, Mama, here we go. Begin, be brief, and be simple. So I'm coming to you today just to talk, just to give you food for thought. Raise your hand if when somebody attack your character, make you mad, say something you don't like, attack your family, you react. Raise your hand.
Depends.
Okay. So for the most part, that's all of us in the room, right? For the most part, right? So I'm bringing a page to you today from my book, How Can I Encourage You? And the name of this particular thought is, don't clap back. Wait for it to collapse. Okay. I used to be a hothead, but the Lord said otherwise. So I do better now when I handle situations and people that come my way. I had to learn late in life. It is what you don't say that sometimes is the most effective thing. And you know what it is usually? Because it's the hardest thing. It's hard to shut up when somebody talking about your people, you, what you doing. But you know what I had to learn? More times than not, when people are talking about you, y'all not watching my watch because I want to stay within my time. It's because they're jealous. They just don't want you to have it.
Come on now.
They got drama of their own, and if I think and remember correctly, you know, as long as you unhappy, we want you to be unhappy. I might have made that up a little bit. But y'all get my point.
Yes.
So here's my thing. I want you to know that being silent is sometimes wisdom. And sometimes it is the most effective thing. Just because you're invited to the fight, don't mean you gotta fight. Just because you're invited to the argument, don't mean you have to argue. Sometimes we take silence as a weakness, but in fact, silence, believe it or not, is a strength. Lord, 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 because when I want to, the Lord said, choo, choo, choo. And I'm like, But you know what? I am learning that when I shut up, when Shari shut up, and allow the Lord to do what he gonna do, because here's the thing. When people are coming after you, and it's not true, I tell people all the time, I don't try to resolve a rumor. I'm not gonna go tit for tat, because guess what? I know the truth. You're trying to figure out the truth. So what I'm gonna do, and what I'm doing now, I'll be quiet, and guess what? I said, all right, Lord, this on you. And guess what? If it's not genuine, it's just a matter of time before it collapses anyway. So I took this little note from Michelle Obama. I took this literally. When they take the low road, guess what? You take the high road, especially when it's hard. So what I say to you and my challenge to you today, when people come after you, pause. Because that reaction is on point. Bam! I need you to pause. I need you to breathe. And guess what? I don't need you to say nothing. And then I want you to take before God. For those of you that follow me on social media, you hear me saying God all the time because I am learning. I cannot do anything without God first. I have to ask permission. If the Lord doesn't give me permission, guess what, you all? More times than not, it's probably not going to be successful.
That's right.
But if I get permission first and allow the Lord to be the center of my life so he checks it out first, guess what? More than likely, I'm going to be okay. So, remember, don't clap back. Wait for it to collapse. It's not what you say. Sometimes it's what you don't say. And it is most effective. God bless you, and I hope I stay within my time.
She said, don't clap back. Jesus still working on me with that. I love it. Because they say go low. I'm like, let's do it. But I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm like, how low you want to go? But she said, be quiet. Yes, I love that. Ooh, I know.
It's hard.
We're going to get there. My bad. You know, this is how me and God talk. This is how we communicate. I be like, I think they want me to do it. You be like, don't do it. But they asking for it, Jesus. But you got to, be quiet. Sometimes silence do speak volumes. I be wanting to say a lot of stuff. I'm working on it, though, because sometimes it come out quicker than I can think. You don't be meaning to say it. But then it be like, ooh, I said it. Yeah. I gotta work on that pause. So y'all remember, don't clap back. If you don't take anything away from today, is one, you can't do it by yourself, and two, don't clap back. Next we have, I know that's right. See? Next we have an amazing gentleman that goes by the name of Rashad Johnson, who will be coming up next. He is the founder and CEO of Impact U LLC, an organization dedicated to helping individuals become their most authentic and impactful selves. He is a dynamic motivational speaker with more than 10 years of experience. He has inspired audiences across the country with messages centered on personal growth, leadership, and authenticity. He has some amazing books known as Cage Dream and Identical Contradiction. These books encourage readers to break free from limitations and empower and embrace their true potential. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Rashad Johnson. How you take your head off, man?
A while ago, I was in a huge room. The room was very dark. And there were tons of people in the room. And there was a gate at the far end of the room. And we all knew that in order to live, you had to be the first one out the gate. This is a true story. My father went through the same thing. He was one of 3 that made it out. Usually it's only one. But I'm happy. And of course, the fact that I'm standing here, you all know I made it out. But I'm excited, I'm happy to boast that out of over 200 million sperm, I'm the one that made it. But this is what's more important. This is what's more important. I want you to understand this. Out of over 200 million sperm, you were victorious. Out of 200 million sperm, you did. You were the one. Out of 200 million sperm, you came in this like successful and victorious. And I think sometimes we forget that. People always say, I'm 1 in a million. I've said for years, I'm not 1 in a million because I'm not that common. But today's message is stop code switching. Be authentically you. If we had to put, let's say we were getting ready for this event, we had to put a picture up on the wall. We had to nail it in the wall. We had a picture and a nail, but we didn't have a hammer. Anybody out here have a hammer? Anybody have a hammer? Every time I ask that, nobody has a hammer. But I would be really concerned if some guys walk around with a hammer. Okay, let me back to track. But if we had to nail this picture in the wall, and I didn't have a hammer, I got a hard box. I could take it off and I could nail into the wall. But what would happen if I nailed that nail into the wall over and over again? Day after day, just nailing nails into the wall with my shoe. I would damage that shoe. Everybody agree? That's the same thing we do with code switching. And I'm gonna break it down to you exactly why. Now, I know you might be like, well, that's your opinion. So I'm gonna tell you, and everybody, do you know what code switching is? So code switching, the definition of code switching is changing one's speech or behavior to fit a different cultural or social situation. And I think a lot of us have done it before. A lot of us have felt like we had to do it, whether it's work, or church, in front of your grandma. Some of y'all don't talk the same in front of your friends, you do your grandma. But I'm going to tell you what a bunch of psychologists say. And this is a study over years of a lot of minorities that code switch because we felt like we had to. This is what psychologists say. The negative effects. They say navigating multiple linguistic and behavioral norms requires constant, exhausting mental monitoring, frequently leading to emotional exhaustion and burnout. One result of the study. Another, hiding one's natural dialect or cultural background can create feelings of fraudulence, self-doubt, and detachment from one's authentic self. This is what the experts say. By the way, I wrote a book called Identical Contradiction, Debunking the Myth of Code Switching and Becoming Your Most Authentic Self. Let me get back to what the experts say. They say frequent code switching can sometimes hinder a speaker's overall communication, competence, even in a single dominant language, reducing connectedness in formal environments. Let me break it down in layman's terms what that means. Some people know you code switch because you can't fool everybody. And have you ever seen something fake and something real? You're like, oh, I know that's fake. I know that. Well, people know you're changing up. People know that that's not really who you are. But let me talk about the effects of it. It says, also, the last effect. Ooh, it got real little. When marginalized groups are forced to alter how they speak to be viewed as professional, It unfairly reinforces harmful stereotypes and institutional bias. In layman's terms, what does that mean? Me feeling like I'm trying to be professional or trying to code switch to talk the way that's acceptable to them, it causes other people I love and care about to be seen in a different way. Because now, if my cousin doesn't talk like Rashad did in the boardroom, oh, he must not be intelligent. He must not be of high character. Now, if you understand this, now everybody in here believes in God. Like everybody, I think I've got that so far. Okay, everybody believes in God. So, God, the ultimate intellectual, the ultimate creator, the ultimate designer, the ultimate engineer, created you a certain way, but somehow you feel like you need to change that to appease somebody else. Now, I understand why we do it. Sometimes we do it because we need jobs. I've done it before. But what is it about that makes us feel like we need to change who we are and be less authentic? Now, the good part is you can change. And this is, when I wrote this book, this was years of me doing some self-reflection and realizing, this ain't me. This ain't me. I'm not doing it anymore. Now, it costs me. Now, let me just let y'all know. If you decide you're just going to be authentically you everywhere, everybody ain't going to like that.
No, preach.
It's going to cost you.
You preach.
It's going to cost you. But what is the price you're willing to pay? In my book, I have a section called the GPS analogy. And see, I want to help you get back on track, like I got back on track. The GPS analogy states, if you were to put, let's say we want to go to 555 King Street, and we put that in the GPS, what is the first thing the GPS has to do?
Figure it out. Calculate the route. Calculate, yeah.
What is the first thing?
Find a destination. You have
to almost, it's a good thing. But this is the first thing the GPS has to do. The first thing it has to do is to identify exactly where you are. So it can tell you, give you directions to get to where you want to go. And see, sometimes it doesn't matter how many conferences you go to, it doesn't matter how many podcasts you listen to, it doesn't matter how many good coaches you have. If you're not brutally honest with yourself about exactly where you are, any direction you get to go wherever is not going to work. A lot of us are spinning our wheels because we're like, I went to this conference and I listened to this and I did this and I took this course, but you aren't being brutally honest about where you are. Let me tell you, people always say, I keep it 100, I keep it 100, I keep it a stack. I don't keep it 100. I keep it 99 because I lie every now and then. And that's just the truth about me. That's just the truth about me. Let me tell you, now some of the lies. Let me tell you some of the lies. I told myself at the beginning of this year, for my business, I was going to do certain things every week. I lied. I said I was going to I said I was going to post on social media every week and do this and you can call it whatever you want to. You forgot, you didn't have the time. You lied. Now, the good thing about the GPS is, even if you take a wrong turn, you ever been in the GPS and you take a wrong turn, like, what does it say? Reroute. See, it can reroute. Do you know, oftentimes when people talk about something that's really popular and really of high intellect or something that's the very opposite, they're like, look, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. Let's talk about rocket science. Because do you know that rockets are off course 90 to 97% of the time? Most of the time they spend getting back on course because they're going long distances. So it may be they're 1 degree off, 2 degrees off, but going back to being honest, you have to learn how to be honest with yourself. Because some of us have get off course, and instead of course correcting, we just continue to go in the wrong direction. And we continue, and no matter how far you go, if I walk 100 feet this way or 100 feet that way, the bottom line is I still had to walk 100 feet. And if I'm going in the wrong direction, I gotta come back. I want to encourage you, get back on track. Stop code switching. Be your authentic self. Because that's going to get you the success you want to. That's the person God created you to be. That's when everything's going to fall in line. I love it.
Yeah, give me a round of applause. I love that. He said you got to be honest with yourself. So I want y'all to think about that. Like, where are you right now? Like right now, in your business, in life, where are you right now? You know, it's funny because I be telling people I don't lie either. And if somebody asks me a question, I be like, don't get me lying, but just because you, and I tell them, don't get me lying, I don't know. But now I know I probably did lie 1% too because I said I was going to post every day and I didn't do it. So I be lying too. Thank you for calling me out, bro. Appreciate it. All right. Are y'all ready for one of our keynote speakers? Yes. I need to hear some noise. There we are. He goes by the name of Terrell Costa. He is affectionately known as TC. He is an influential leader, a retired U.S. Air Force veteran, say veteran, a motivational speaker dedicated to helping individuals become 1%, say 1%, 1% better every day. Drawing from his military experience and personal life experiences, he serves and inspires audiences to embrace discipline, say discipline, showing up even when you don't feel like it. Resilience and intentional growth. TC is passionate about restoring hope, renewing purpose, and guiding people on a path for healing. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. TC.
Good morning, good afternoon. All right, so we're going on a vacation, 6 months, all expense paid trip. Where are we going? Give me a location. Costa Rica. All right, Jamaica. One more location.
Oh, Ghana.
You said Ghana? Ghana. I thought you said Gaza. I was like, ooh. I don't know about that. All right, so we're going to Costa Rica, Jamaica, and Ghana. All right, all expense paid trip. How many bags we bringing? One?
Like 3.
3? All right, 3 bags. I done did 9 deployments in my career, so we brought a lot of bags on those deployments. So 3 bags, 1 bag. All right, the caveat, 2 bags. How big is the bag gonna be?
Enough.
Enough? All right, we're going for 6 months. We're not coming back, right? We're going for 6 months. Now, the caveat is, in order to go on this vacation for 6 months, you gotta bring the bags wherever you go. How many of y'all still going?
One bag.
Oh, one, now y'all reducing. Right? So y'all reducing the number. Right? Yeah. So I'm here to talk about carrying excess baggage. Protecting the most precious piece of real estate you will ever own is your mind. Your mind is the most precious piece of real estate you will own. And when we carry our baggage, our trauma with us, where does it exist? Right here in our mind, right? So sometimes on those deployments, and Marcus can attest to this, when we was dragging these bags across the rocks and you got 80-pound bags, it's heavy. But with a trip, you can bring your bags, you can let it sit, and then when you leave the deployment or the location, you bring your bags and you let it sit, right? When you carry excess baggage or emotions and trauma, it exists right here. So that could be heavy, right? So I'm going to share my story through recognizing, rebuilding, and restoration, all right? So first, you gotta recognize that you got some baggage or some trauma. Now, there's always a root to the fruits of that baggage, right? Mine was rejection, right? My root baggage was rejection. So I grew up single parent household, my mom raised me, single parent. My dad is a famous musician, guitar player, and he decided that he just didn't want to be a part of my life for whatever reason, right? He has his own reason. So my mom raised me. As I got older, I'm asking those questions, like, where's my dad at, right? And she said, here he is. So there was this picture or his record label, one of his records. She said, that's your dad. So that record stood on my nightstand and still does. It's in my closet now, from the age of 5 all the way till now. Right now it's in my closet. And I just wondered, was like, okay, now I start asking questions why he didn't want to be involved, right? And as I get older, I start to act out, right? Just as young kids do, you start to feel yourself, you're like, I'm gonna clap back, right? Not clap back, but I was clapping back, right? So I started getting in trouble, started doing stuff, and one day I got arrested. I was trespassing, and I grew up in the project, right? And so when the police brought me back, my mom pulled up. When the police car pull up in the projects, what everybody doing? They looking out the window, they like, what's going on, right? And so I got out the police car because I wasn't technically arrested yet. They just brought me back. And I started clapping back with my mama and with the police. and I got my key in the door, and next thing you know, I was in handcuffs, right? And the day later, I ended up getting probation every day. Day later, guess who I get to speak to for the first time at age 14 was my dad. So I was like, oh, this is what I need to do to get his attention, right?
Wow.
And he said that he was going to have a gig in Boston. So I grew up in Massachusetts. He said he was going to have a gig in Boston. I'll be there in a couple weeks. I'm going to come scoop you up on Friday. I was excited. So from Friday all the way to Sunday, I sat by my door waiting. And he never showed up. Like, people were coming to my house to play, and I was like, no, my dad's coming. I literally sat by the door outside the window, sleeping there, eating there, waiting for him. He never showed, right? And so that rejection stung. As a man, or as a person that was going into manhood, it's like that rejection stung. At the same time, my mom was dealing with her stuff, right? And she had a husband that was not just physically abusive, but emotionally and mentally abusive. And we didn't get along. It was a Tupac Biggie situation. And the entire time I was in high school, I probably was home a few months, right? Because I was always getting kicked out, or something I said to him, or something I said, and all this stuff. So as I got older, you start to compartmentalize that. Why did my mama love me? Why did my daddy love me, right? And I finally got to meet my dad at 21 years old. I was coming back from Kuwait. I go to meet my brother for the first time, and he's like, yo, we just gonna go meet dad. And I'm like, all right. So we go meet him. It was literally like looking in the mirror. And I'm looking in the mirror, we doing the same mannerisms, everything. We doing this, we looking, and he's like, oh, I just need to get a DNA test. My heart sunk, right? And at the same time, I'm just like, you know what? I'm carrying this rejection. I'm compartmentalizing it. And what I was doing, and one of my favorite quotes is, if you live for people's acceptance, you will die by their rejection. I was slowly dying by the rejection of my parents, right? So this is what I did with that rejection, right? I just stuffed it in a bag. I said, I'll deal with that later, right? I don't want to touch that. It hurts too much, right? So at the same time, I'm 5 years old, my mom's coping mechanism was drugs and alcohol, right? Cocaine was her drug of choice. And at 5 years old, she brought this man around. One of the only, I'm mixed, so my mom is white, my dad is black. And one of the only white guys my mom really brought around the house because she loved black people. I mean, my mom was like a secondary black person for real. And so, right? And so she brought this guy around, and he was like her supplier. So he would give her like free drugs, and she was like, hey, I need you to watch my son. So my mom worked like 3 different jobs just to keep the lights on. And so I told my mom, I'm like, yo, I don't like how he plays with me. Because that's how I articulated it, right? Because he said this was our playtime. So I'm only repeating what I was learning, right? And my mom didn't understand. She was like, oh, no, you're fine. So there was a house party, because my mom was known for house parties and all her friends. So we had a house party at my godmom's house. And I'm in the bathroom. I'm not using the bathroom, but I'm in the bathroom because I wanted to tell my godmom something. And it was the only quiet place in the party. So I said, godmom. And I explained to her what happened. And her face told me what this man did was not okay, right? So then she went and got my mom. I had to explain it again. I literally watched my mom do a line of cocaine, and then she went out the house to go try to kill this man, right? So 2 years later, we're now facing a trial for child molestation, right? And so now I'm in 3rd grade at the time. I'm 7 years old, and I have to get up there and testify of the horrors that happened. So when they told me that what happened was incorrect, was unlawful, what I did with that, abuse, right? And I was like, I'm gonna stuff this in this little bag. I'm gonna deal with it later, right? So I'm in there, I'm testifying, I'm like, they said, the man that did this to you, can you point him out? And I said, yeah, him right there. And the minute I did that, this fear of death overtook me. And I was perplexed and I was horrified because every day I thought I was going to die, Like this fear would come over my mind. It would literally take over me. I would have these panic attacks that would last 30 to 45 minutes. And what the enemy told me was God was mad at me that I told his secret. And you know what's amazing about that is I believed it. Even as an adult, that God was mad at me. So when I would have these spells as an adult and I'm panicking, I learned to cope with it, right? I would be like, all right, God, I promise I won't do this anymore. I promise I won't do this anymore. Just take this away, right? That fear kicks in. And what I did with that fear, I ain't tell nobody. I put it in my bag. So I'll deal with that later. So when I got assaulted again at 8 years old, you know what I did? I didn't say anything for 33 years. Because I said, okay, if I said something and I was brave enough to say something the first time, I don't know what's going to happen this time, right? And so when I finally told my mom I broke my silence, she was like perplexed. And I said, you know what? It was a secret that I wasn't willing to share, right? Because I always thought I was going to die. And it became real because at third grade, I switched schools. So I was going to a different school. My mom moved to the city. I started going to the school. And I met this kid, Jared Sinagra, was one of my best friends. He was so kind. He was so cool little white boy, right? So cool. We had like a secret dap handshake. He sat right next to me. And there was, you know how you get your little breaks in school? I think it was like a holiday weekend. I don't know if it was Columbus Day, spring break, or something like that. So we come back to school, Jared ain't sitting there. So I'm like, oh, where's Jared at? You know, and everybody, because Jared didn't miss school, right? Jared went on a camping trip that weekend. And then we had the principal come into the classroom. Principal comes in the classroom and says, I'm sorry to announce that Jared passed away this weekend in a camping accident. 13 souls were lost that weekend because of carbon monoxide poisoning. They were in a tent and the heater broke or something like that. And Jared was one of them. So you know what the devil told me? You're next. That's what I heard. So when I saw how real it is that a child could die, you best believe that fear multiplied by 7, 10, thousands and thousands, because I said, okay, this child has lost his life. And if I'm next, I believe that. And I walk with that fear. So when I lost friends, I lost loved ones, as I grew up, I was like, I'm always going to be next. Right? That fear consumed me. And what I did was I joined the military at 18 because I said, I got to get out of here. And as a man, well, we're learning to be a man. You're trying to compartmentalize all the trauma and the things that you deal with while trying to be a man. It's damn near impossible because I wasn't willing to recognize that I had these traumas. I buried it so deep that when it would bubble to the surface, I wasn't willing to deal with it. And sometimes people suffer trauma. Their drug of choice could be drugs, could be alcohol. Mine was promiscuity. Because my dad was out there in the streets. He was famous. And when we would have conversations, because after I met him, we kind of established a rapport, and he would tell me, and he would brag about it. So I'm like, oh, that's what I need to do. I need to do the same exact thing. Because my dad did. Because I held him on a high esteem and a pedestal, and I always I wanted his acceptance so bad that I was willing to compromise the person who God made me to be to go towards that route, right? So that was my drug of choice, promiscuity. It didn't even matter. Like if you showed interest, I was like, all right, I'm with it. And I'm just being honest and real because that's how I dealt with it. But I was introduced to that so young, at such a young age, that promiscuity existed in my spirit, unfortunately. And then it manifested as I got older. So you compartmentalize and you're dealing with all these things. And then this unforgiveness creeps in. Oh yeah, people don't like to deal with this. Unforgiveness, right? So when I was abused, when I was rejected, I was a victim. But as a man, I am no longer the victim, right? Because I got to recognize the traumas and then I have to take accountability of that trauma. regardless if it's my fault or not, right? Accountability is something that is just a foreign concept, unfortunately, here in the United States, or just in the world in general. They're like, I apologize, and that's it. No, right? You need to take ownership of that thing, right? And so I was running from all of that. And I didn't come to the realization until I was 40 years old. And I'm going on this deployment. And it was my last deployment in the military. I had came back from Kuwait. The Lord had told me to stay. And then I was like, I'm going to stay. So I was going to be there for a whole year away from my family. And then 3 weeks later, I get sent home. There was a lady there. She did not like me for whatever reason, targeted me, sent me home. And I was angry, and I was going to retire. I was going to leave the Air Force. And I always told myself, oh, God, I'm going to stay as long as you tell me to stay. I hit the 20 year. I can clock out anytime, but I'm going to stay as long as you want me to stay. So I come back from that deployment salty, like ready to like clap back, right? And then I'm like, all right, I'm ready to clap back. I'm ready to do this. And then I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. So I transfer to squadron. I go to a new squadron, and they tell me, hey, there's a deployment coming up. You want to go? And I said, yeah, I'll go. And part of my job in the military was dealing with mortuary. So when I prayed to God and I said, God, you really want me to go there? He said, yeah. So I go there. I meet this lady. She's a therapist, but she's a believer, right? So she starts to help me to unpack this baggage.
All right.
So I start to unpack the unforgiveness.
Yeah.
I start to unpack the fear.
Yeah.
I start to unpack the abuse.
All right.
I start to unpack the rejection.
All right.
And what's amazing about God is that he brought things to my memory that I buried for so long. Because I was willing to be open and honest for the first time in my life. I was tired of running. And I said, God, you brought me here for a purpose. And where I was working in for those 6 months was in direct contact with our fallen service members, dress and restoration. So I had to dress these men and women. I had to casket them, and I had to prepare them for their final destination. And when they told me that, of course, that fear came over. So I trained for several months. I was trained for about a month, and we was dressing mannequins. We was doing that. I said, oh, I got it. And then a name hits the board. They say, we're gonna disqualify a Marine tomorrow. All right, coming in, and then another person comes. So now the next day, I'm in the morgue, and I'm praying in the corner of the room. I'm like, God, you brought me here for a purpose, and I trust you. And that's the first time in my life that I meant it. Because I couldn't run anymore. He brought me to a place where I could not run. I could not escape from my fear and my abuse. And when they wheeled the veteran back there, the sheet comes off his face, and the fear of death leaves me immediately. It has not had come back ever since. God literally showed me that death has no power over you, right? Literally was looking death in the face, and he showed me that it no longer had power, right? But see, God ordained all of that to align, because mortuary was a part of my job, but I never had to do it. I did it once in 2003, but I never had to experience that until the end of my career. And I did it for 2 more years. I took care of 52 fallen service members and their family members. And that fear never came, because I knew it was God has me here for a mission and a purpose, right? That unforgiveness, I start unpacking unforgiveness, and God begins to restore the relationship with my dad. There was a 7-year period where me and my dad didn't speak, and it was very difficult. He restores that. I was able to go to his R&B induction ceremony 2 years ago in Detroit. My mom, I began to release, because the rural root was I had a mama problem, right? And I mean, I had mother issues, because that's why I was mistreating women. I didn't respect my mother. So if I don't respect my mother, well, how do you think I'm going to respect other women? And my therapist helped me realize that. And so 30 days ago, I get married, and thank you. It is beautiful woman right there, right?
All right.
And 30 days ago, I get married, and I chose a song for Mama, but I was still dealing with a little bit of residue, right? That refining process. There's a difference between 14 karat gold and 24 karat gold, right? That refinement. And as I'm dancing with my mama, I start to weep like a little boy. And after I was done, I told my wife, I said, God just peeled that last layer of resentment that I had, right? Towards my mom. And that is the rebuild phase, right? Because rebuild is to transform. Romans 12:2 tells us to be transformed to the mind, right? And in that rebuilding phase, the root word to transform is metamorpho. So metamorphosis. So I started looking at Googling metamorphosis. What does that really mean? The caterpillar literally has an alarm that goes off and says, hey, you need to go build this cocoon, right? And in that cocoon, the caterpillar literally turns itself inside out. You know how painful that gotta be to be turned inside out? But when it breaks out of that cocoon, it's flying. It was walking on the ground and now it's flying. It has a different perspective. The perspective is different. But if it doesn't go through that process, they end up dehydrating and dying. That's what the caterpillar does. And so rebuild and restoration, God doesn't allow something to happen to you without a purpose, right? So all of these things that happen, it's not my story, it's his story that he tells through me.
That's right.
Because he restored me to the man that I am, where I was able to meet my new wife at a job that God lined. When he told me it was time to retire, he opened up a door at a high school, and then I'm leaving the second interview. I don't even see my wife's face, and he said, that's your wife. But I wanted to turn back, but I knew if I turned back, I was going to turn to salt. Because I was going to take it into my own hands. And I had learned I can't do that. So several months later, when we spark up a conversation, I don't even realize it, right? And then we end up getting married. We have a son. We have another one on the way. God restored the time that the locust stole from me, right?
Yeah.
To bring me into this, because I spent so many years in the wilderness, lost. And I'm just so thankful and privileged. And I'm going to leave you with this quote. That time is the only currency that you get to spend without ever knowing your remaining balance. So if you spend your time in the past worrying about what he said, what she said, what they did to you, then you may end up out of time. But if you spend your time saying, instead of saying, why me? Remember when Nancy Kerrigan got hit and she screamed, why me in the 94 Olympics, right? Then you say, why me, God? Why did you allow all these things to happen? It was for a purpose and a reason, right? But if you do not get to the other side and you do not deal with it, you will never know. Thank you so much.
Y'all give TC another round of applause. That was good. You gotta protect your mind. You know, there's a lot of stuff be going on in the world today, and we gotta protect our mind, what we let get in there. And I know because I be, listening to the music, and it was like, spin that. And I was like, no, save it, invest it. So, you just gotta protect what goes inside your mind. Are you all enjoying yourself thus far? Are you getting poured into? Did I fulfill my promise to you? Look, when you came up there with the bags, I thought you was about to go another route. And I was like, well, you need that. I'm just burning a little time so that we can put a new battery inside the camera. So, this my little stand-up film.
Go stand-up comedy.
She said, go up there and cut up. I said, say no more. Don't threaten me with a good time. Also, I want to let y'all know that we do have some wonderful raffle tickets available. They are $10. And you get to pick from some of these amazing prizes over here. And I see a shoebox. I'm not going to open it. I'm not. But it's a non-West shoebox right there that's calling my name, and I would like that for $10 if I could get that for $10. I'm just saying, you don't find nothing in non-West for $10. But they also have a lot of Align and Thrive merch over here. Nice bags, laptop. Oh, this is a yes laptop bag. Y'all got money. They have a selfie stick. So make sure that y'all get y'all raffle tickets. They're $10. You can do it through PayPal. You can do it through Cash App because we want to support and make sure that you get. If you wear those non-West shoes and they just happen to be a size 8 and you enjoying my stand-up show, please give them to your girl. Yes. All right. Can y'all clap it up for TC again for me? I gotta wait for the thumbs up. All right, we're gonna move on with our next speaker. And I am just amazed at her beautiful testimony as I was reading through her bio. Her name is Miss Nasa Shepherd. She is the founder and CEO of Miracle Moments, LLC. She is a speaker, an entrepreneur, and an advocate of hope and resilience. She is a North Carolina native. Say North Carolina. Yeah, we got Raleigh in the house. I live in South Carolina, y'all, but you know, we cousins. She is also a Liberty University graduate with a bachelor's in business administration. She has overcome extraordinary medical challenges since birth, including esophageal disorders, multiple heart surgeries, and years of dependence on a feeding tube. Her journey inspires others. Her passion for empowering others to embrace their voice, overcome adversity, and recognize the potential within every challenge. Through her powerful testimony, she reminds audiences that every obstacle can become a miracle, and every miracle can become a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Ms. Nasa Shepherd.
Thank you, everybody. Come on, shoes. Okay. So, when Dr. Kimberly texted me one morning, she asked me what was I going to speak about. Well, at the time, I didn't have a topic, to be honest with you guys. But what came up for me was becoming her, right? So, I was prompted with a question a while back, like, what does it look like when you became her? And I was like, well, literally, I cannot answer that because I'm still becoming her. Mm-hmm. And as I talk about, so like when I was thinking about that, what came up for me is like, we automatically start thinking about the next level. We start picturing the new vision, the new version of ourselves, the more successful version, the more healed version, the more confident version, and the version that has the money, the peace, the discipline, and the clarity. The version that is finally has it all together, the version that has figured everything out. And if I can be totally honest and transparent with you guys, I don't have it all figured out. But I'm still showing up and I'm still showing up.
Right.
So I'm still becoming, I don't have everything figured out. There are still days like today. I question myself, still days I have to take a deep breath before I show up. Still days I'm praying, God, are you sure you picked the right person? I walk into rooms looking confident on the outside, but on the inside, I'm reminding myself, Nisa, you belong here because confidence isn't always a feeling, it's a decision.
I love that.
It's choosing to stand where God placed you, even when your mind tries to talk you out of it. And I think sometimes we put so much pressure